Greetings, I'm Sophis, and this is a brief video on why I believe the Vampire Coast is the ideal first faction for you to play in Total War Warhammer. This video will be slightly shorter. So, you've heard of Total War Warhammer. I'm confident that it was scenes like this that drew you in. The large-scale fantasy battles with all the carnage, or maybe you're an old Warhammer fantasy fan who wanted to see all the minis come to life. In my case, what drew me in was the artillery and the gunpowder era tactics. I understand the recommended factions are either Cathay, High Elves, or the Empire. I also know they are some of the most played, the Empire especially. However, Total War is a complex strategy game. You have to contend with many moving parts. It has turn-based and real-time systems. To an outsider, it can seem very intimidating. It certainly was the case for me. I almost quit. There are about 4 arguments to be made in favor of the Vampire Coast. Minimal to no empire management, no pressure for additional armies, their free roam nature, and a handful of mechanics that reduce the punishment for failures. I will go into each in more detail. First, the empire management. It can be a familiar enough system, and it is not all that complex if you played strategy games before. But each race in this game has a different pace to their progression, economy, and the importance of certain buildings. The slot system does not permit you to build everything you want. You have major settlements of varying sizes and the minor settlements. Do you favor recruitment or economy? Which type of unit barracks is most important to build? When should you upgrade a building's tier? Of course, with experience you'll know the answers and have your preferences, but that takes practice and time, and this is just one of the systems in the game. With the Vampire Coast that problem is minimal, especially considering that your legendary lord has enough slots to cover most of what you need. You can play at Empire and Conquest with them, but that is not necessary. Their settlements and economy are weaker than a regular faction, and they have an alternative to simply occupying a settlement, granted that it has a port. Pirate coves are very powerful. They allow you to siphon a local settlement's economy and allow you to boost your hero capacity and lord recruit rank. You don't even need to protect them. So long as the settlement is not raised, it'll stay there. You can establish them with heroes on the campaign map with a small cooldown. That only costs you gold. Or, if you can manage, you attack the settlements and instead of sacking it, you can establish a pirate cove. No cooldown in this case. Second, you will have no pressure to have additional armies. If you are not aiming to hold much territory, you won't need generals on the field. The Vampire Coast generic lords work off of the loyalty system, which is something to be mindful of. If you let it fall too low, you've got a mutiny in your hands. This can be helped with a fairly high level skill that prevents loyalty decay. In the early game, I prefer sticking with just my legendary lord, hiring the generic lords on occasion to protect my settlements if I need to, or for a little backup if I feel outnumbered, but I am quick to dismiss them. If you establish coves quickly and keep plundering, you'll have access to higher level fresh recruits. If you keep swapping in your generic lords for new ones, you accumulate a decent amount to start filling in the special roles in the Admiralty. Bonus points if one of the first technologies that you research and aim towards is the one that gives you additional ranks to your lords. So, all that to say that the natural way that the faction works encourages you to have less territory and armies early on. If you really want more pirates like your legendary lord, the tech tree provides you with 4 more. If you want a permanent generic lord, keep in mind you won't have the horde recruitment, and try to hire one at a level closer to the permanent loyal skill requirement. The third argument for them as a starter faction is that for the most part, they are a very free roam faction. You have a starting scenario, but you can more easily sail away from it and establish yourself elsewhere, especially given your legendary lord is your main base, as it were. If you ask me to rank them in matters of most to least easy to roam free, I would say Noctilus, Luthor Harkon, Silostra, and Aranessa. Noctilus has a faraway capital in the middle of the ocean. Enemies can sail to it, but you're usually given a good amount of time to prepare. Luthor Harkon is locked at the start at his location, but once you take over the first region, it is fairly easy to defend. I build up walls, get the building that lets you recruit mortars and cannons, then rely on generic lords to handle emergencies. That usually gets the job done. Silostra is caught in the middle of a fairly messy all-out brawl. Personally, I don't like her start position and would try to migrate elsewhere. I feel her situation can get a little rougher than Luthor's. And Aranessa is next to Skavenblight. But whichever lord you go for, it's absolutely possible to just pick a direction and forge a path. Even your campaign objectives, for the most part, don't strong arm you into going down a specific route. You set up camp anywhere you want, rest, regroup, and if things get ugly, you can move elsewhere. Fourth and last, mechanics. The Vampire Coast has a lot of tools which make life easier for a newer player. First off, your units are undead. This means morale in battle is important, but they don't rout. They fight to the death, and they disintegrate. It also means the healing you have access to restores lost units. This part is crucial, as post-battle, if you have the Winds of Magic to do it, you can heal your most beat-up troops and have a faster recovery. If you do lose a good amount of units, you have two fallbacks. First, the more luck-based mechanic that gives your lost units a chance to come back after a battle. Second, the raise dead mechanic. The latter is exceedingly convenient and can let you recover even if you took a beating. And if you had a Pyrrhic victory but took out enough enemies, congratulations. You've created a site that lets you raise more powerful undead units. Furthermore, the Horde mechanic the Legendary Lord has is relatively rare among the races in the game, more so in Warhammer 3. The fact that you can have recruitment buildings move along with your army means you are rarely out of options and chances to recover. So, with all those factors in mind, I hope you can see how all of this can make for a very newbie-friendly experience, as more often than not, what makes us quit or lose the campaign is a set of smaller mistakes cascading down into a full-blown disaster. I know they are not the easiest campaign out there. A Beastman campaign is very hard to lose, but the way they play is very different from the majority of the races. The Vampire Coast has its oddities, but they are closer to the common experience and can give you that initial footing. And if you want the easiest possible start with them, you can't go wrong with Noctilus. From the start, you have access to vampire magic and thus healing. You also get a Necrophax Colossus, the best unit of their roster, right at the start. If that was not enough, he starts with a Gunnery Wight, the hero that will boost your ranged units and restore their ammo. As of recording this video, I've got a fun little trick to recommend to you as well. Play with a small amount of territory, no matter the lord you picked. Start sailing and plundering towards Cathay. Get yourself all the way down to the isles underneath Ind and Koresh. Take out the local High Elves and establish a pirate fortress there. It is an extremely safe, isolated corner, from which you can launch many armies to pillage and plunder across the world. That's about it for this video. If you'd like to see a brief gameplay showcasing how I play the Vampire Coast, please inform me below.